I have a couple of clowns today that are very distracting. And they just all at once are in the mood to play and have been chasing each other all over the place. And then the hound randomly starts to bark because they can't just play quietly. So, yeah, that was her. How happy she is, though. Anyway, so it's hella hot out there today. We already got our walk in, so life is good on that end. Trying to work on getting them to calm down before I put the leash on them, which is a whole ordeal in and of itself. And it's a hot mess. They're getting a little bit better, but they're still difficult. So, yeah. So today I decided to brave the task of switching out my nose ring, and I don't know that I love it. I'm pretty confident that I don't at the moment, and this one is rose gold, and I kind of wish it was a different color, although I like rose gold. I'm just not, I'm not sure how I'm feeling about this so far. It's going to take some getting used to. But I braved it on my own, and the only part that was a problem was when I grabbed the back. Okay, on the inside of my nose, I grabbed the back post. I didn't realize that I grabbed the back post and I grabbed the front one on the outside of my nose, so that was kind of a pain. But once I figured that all out and got it handled, all was well. Did have to, I started trying to put the hoop in and kind of got a little panicky at one point because I wasn't sure I was going to be able to do it. And it's like, okay, I always psych myself out and make things a bigger deal than they have to be. So I need to stop that. And I just kind of had this moment of sending a help out to the universe. And one of the first things that happened was I ended up pulling what I had in out. And it's like, all right, now take a deep breath and try it again. And then it actually went surprisingly easy. Still feels weird. Again, take a while to get used to, but we're going to try it. And I don't know that I'll keep it that way. Already don't love the rose gold, which I love rose gold. Just not right there, I think. But is what it is for now. And in the meantime, we'll see what we can do about getting used to it, I guess. So a couple days ago, I saw this. I think it was the Abundance Alchemist had a post on Instagram, and he was talking about how with the summer solstice, it was a perfect time to clear some clutter, right? It's like, okay, make room for whatever else you want to invite in, right? And of course, that's what I've been trying to do anyway. So I decided that I wasn't going to get through yesterday without packing up at least one box and taking it over to the storage unit. Because it's been a little while since I've taken anything much over there. And usually it's just like, when I first started taking things over there, I would take like a truck full. Part of a truck full because my dad's truck had like all his tools and stuff in it, and there wasn't much space to put stuff in. But I would fill it up however much I could and take it over there and drop it off. And since then, it's just kind of been like, as I come across things that I don't really need, like realizing my sewing machine was on the back of the dog crate. It's like, okay, well, clearly I'm not using that, so it can go over there. So, there was a day I took that and I think a lamp and something else, nothing much. But just like things as I find them. And as I realize I don't need them or deem them safe for storage for the time being anyway, then I'll just take a box or 3 if I can. So I decided yesterday I was not going to end the day without taking something over there. Right, so it was just like a random hodgepodge of things. I had this tote that there were like 4 stuffed animals on the bottom of it. And then I had a shoebox full of picture frames that were kind of wrapped, but not... Yeah, stuff I'm trying not to break, but at the same time, because I got the little stuffed animals that I do want to hang on to, and they're nice and soft, and so they can go in there for extra cush and all that fun stuff. There were some like hooks and stuff that I have painted that never got hung up, so it's like, fuck it, those can go. I ended up going through this little jewelry box that I had, and I was thinking I was going to use the jewelry box, and it's like, nah, I don't like this one. And like it's really hard to get like the little studs into place on them, and then there's not enough room for like the dangly earrings, and I have a bunch of those now since I was collecting there for a little bit. I don't even know. These came out of a drawer. They're moonstone. I don't remember where I got them. I just know they are moonstone, and they were in a thing with a moonstone ring. I don't know if I got them all from the same place. I don't think so, but whatever. Anyway, I was going through the jewelry box, and like, okay, I've mentioned on here several times that I was really drawn to the yin-yang symbol back in like 7th grade, right? And I got these earrings. They're they're probably like this big, honestly, except for the thing at the bottom's a little bit bigger, and it has a yin-yang on it. I still have those. They're from 7th grade. I never got rid of them. I threw away a lot of things that were probably like from that general time frame or before. And then some things that just were a mess, and then there's a bunch of stuff in a box to be donated. Nothing of value, I don't think, although I did find a pair of diamond studs, so they'll just get added to the collection, I guess, or re-added to the collection because they were already in some kind of collection. Yeah. Still trying to decide what I'm going to do with the jewelry box from my ex, because it was one, he had it in a closet after his divorce, and he basically just said that he got it from the divorce. So obviously not obviously, but he wasn't one that had any kind of jewelry or anything, so I ended up with it. And it's a nice one. I've thought about selling it, so I have nothing left from those days, but I do need to go through stuff in it again. I do that periodically, and then it's like, oh, well, I have so much stuff, then it makes sense to keep it, and then it's like, it's got a stupid story that I don't particularly care to hang on to, so there again, it would be nice to have a little bit of cash out of it, too. But if I post it on freaking Facebook, then my mom comes across it, then she's gonna, like, try to get in my business again, because that's why I don't ever make more progress than I do. So... of course, it worked out with the Foot Locker when I was getting ready to post it. I had gotten it all cleaned up and emptied out and was talking about posting it. And she's like, well, if you don't want it, I'll take it. It's like, you're missing the point. The point was I was going to get money out of it because it's something that's still in really good shape and I could get money out of. But no, she just wanted it for free because I live there. So then... when I set it over by the closet in the front room, it just was collecting dust. So it's like, well, fuck it. I'm going to take it back then. If I can't get rid of it and get money out of it, then I'm going to take it back and use it for my stuff as originally planned. So I was thinking I could probably put like my paint stuff from the garage in it. But then that stuff, it's like, okay, I know in the garage... it's relatively climate controlled. I don't know if it would be safe for the storage unit. I feel like it would be because it doesn't seem like it's too ridiculous when I'm over there. However, I still don't, I got a bunch of cans of spray paint. So yes, it would be nice to have it out of the space and that much more disconnected from the family space. But Not if there's going to, I mean, not if something's going to blow up or whatever. that doesn't sound exciting. So, I mean, it's some kind of exciting, but not a good exciting. So yeah, but I thought it's like I could just put like the paint and stuff in it. And I might, I don't know. I have a couple racks that like my bookcase that had all my puzzles in it. I took all the puzzles to the storage unit already. They're in a box in there. So it would make sense to go ahead and take the bookcase over there. And I was going to do that today. I still probably will later. But it's kind of the damnedest thing. Okay, my father, who has had strokes recently, right? And I've talked about that a bunch on here. Apparently drove the truck over to my grandma's house, which, granted, she's next door, or her house is next door. And the road is mostly blocked off, but it's like, if he's braving it for that far, it's just a matter of time before he's going to start braving it for, more substantial kinds of trips too. So, whatever those two do is on them. I am not getting in the middle of their shit. As I've said many times, it's taken enough to try to disconnect. I'm still working on it. But yeah. But yeah, like, I went ahead and packed that tote yesterday. It's got like 6 stuffed animals all together and like a bunch of things that, could stand to have a little cushion in there. And a shoebox full of picture frames. So, and then just miscellaneous odds and ends. I was thinking, I was like, oh yeah, that's where that was. I had this moment when I was writing about it last night. I came over to my brother's house after I stopped at the storage unit and dropped off the box. And as I was journaling, I made a comment about how it's really hard to figure out what to pack away and go ahead and put in storage or not when there's no kind of plan. Like I have no time frame on when anything will happen, when I'll be able to get out of there. I just feel like I'm supposed to be moving some stuff out. But it's like, if I had more of a plan, then I feel like it would be easier to pack things because, then I would know that, okay, what items I want closest to be able to use sooner or whatever. Just all the logistical side of things. As I was having this thought, I was watching this Venus return tarot reading, and as I'm writing this thought out, she stops and says something about it's not about using logic and it's not needing a plan. She said if you have a sense, you need to follow the sense and go with it. It's like, okay, so like the sense I have that I need to be packing stuff up and, getting it out of my physical space. I feel like I have a hair on my cheek. Get it out of my physical space to make room for better things to come in, right? But it's not getting rid of stuff that I'm going to potentially want in the next location. It's just getting it out of the space so I can kind of disentangle the energetic chaos from the parental space, right? So I've talked a lot about how when I have things, like my 3 dog crates are up against this one wall that has no furniture on it. It's just got like some 3 rows of shelves or 2 rows of shelves that have picture frames, right? So underneath that, it makes perfect sense. And there's some boxes and some miscellaneous things there. Really, I could probably take them apart again and just leave one up. I keep threatening to have to put them back in it, but that keeps not working out. Like, I don't follow through with it because then the biggest thing is if I'm there and the last one to leave the house and leave them out, I know that I need to make sure there's no food on the table and that all the chairs are pushed in. My mom wants to say that Ziva could get up there on the table. It's like, she's 12. She can't get on the table without an assist now. So if you don't leave the chair pushed out, she can't get up there. But for some reason, she and my dad can't figure this out. And yeah, health problems, blah, 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 all that bullshit. But there would have been another excuse before that. So it's not those things. It's just something that, because I keep pushing, if we do this, then we don't have to worry about, them getting in the bag of Halloween candy that my mom took from the counter and moved to the table and then forgot to put back, even though she knows the dogs like to get on the table. So, yeah. Whereas I didn't know that she had moved it back to the table because I was the one that put it on the counter. So, yeah. It's like, when they're not in the way of what I've already had figured out, come back along and fuck it up however they can to make it so it could be a problem for my dogs. Yeah. See, but even then, they're not going to take the time to put my dogs up if I start trying to go back to that. So is there even a point, right? So it's kind of there as a, I don't know, if need be kind of a thing. But realistically, I could probably take them apart and take them over there. Maybe leave Taz's up. But then you can't, there's not a situation where you can just put one up and leave the others out, because then there's issues with the pack dynamic because one got punished and the others didn't. So, yeah. Anyway, there was no need for that tangent, honestly. Anyway, the dog crates are up. They're my dog crates, right? And they're out of the way, but they're basically just, as out of the way as 3 dog crates can be. But when there's not a whole lot of furniture in that space anyway, I've been clearing my other boxes and stuff out too. So work in progress. But anyway, point of that tangent was, when I go skating, I have to air my stuff out. So, I wear the knee pads and the wrist guards when I'm skating, and the knee gasket things. So when I come back, I take those out of the bag and air them out on the dog crate. And it's better for everybody because they're not locked up in the bag to just stink, and they're not wet when I go to put them back on. It is about time to wash them again, though, because they are kind of looking funky. But yeah, so I put those on my dog crate. Well, then my dad comes along and, he'll sit in the chair next to it, and then he's going to throw his, his blanket or his coat or a coffee cup. It's whatever he can throw in that space to make it more difficult for me. It's like he goes actively out of his way to make a mess and leave it in the space where somebody else is going to have to pick up after him. And I don't do it anymore. And I've talked a lot about how, he'll leave apple cores on the end table by the couch, the space on the couch that he sits at, or fruit snack wrappers in the armrest of the couch, but then he doesn't ever pick it up. So whoever gets in there, then it's our problem to have to deal with, right? So that's kind of the big thing I've noticed here lately is, okay, since he's been on prednisone and he's diabetic, that's apparently made his sugar go way up. And so he's on insulin now. So they test his blood sugar. Now there are all of these little blood test strips on the floor. He just drops them and doesn't notice them, or probably does at some level. He might not notice all of them, but there's been a bunch that I've noticed get left behind. So yeah, or, empty water bottles on the table, dirty dishes. He loves leaving those out, and it's the spot that I used to sit in, and will occasionally sit in at the table, is where he tends to go the most now and leave trash behind. But since I don't stay in that space because he gets it all nasty and I don't want to clean up after him anymore, until my mom cleans it up, because he's not going to. And she might bitch at him about it, but she's still going to do it. Whereas I spent so much time doing it and was basically being taken advantage of because it just became my job to clean up after him. So it's like, no, I'm not okay with that existence. So I stopped. Right? So the less I have that is my personal stuff in the space where their shit can take over, the better for me, So when I do get into a situation where I am able to leave for good, my stuff will already mostly be out of there. So I won't have to worry about refinding the things that their shit took over so I couldn't get out of there easy. Right? So that's kind of where I'm at. It's just kind of interesting that it was that whole thing came up last night. I talked about how I did the one video and I was talking about my process for leaving my ex. And then, like a couple days later, I realized that was what I needed to do with my family situation. Start moving my stuff out into a separate space so that their stuff's not, trying to come back in and take over my space or my stuff. And it's out of that area, where it can be locked away and not messed with by people that want to make it very difficult for me to do anything, right? So I'm not supposed to have my own life. I'm just supposed to exist to take care of their bullshit, right? Clean up after them, make it so they don't have to tend to their own stuff because I'm there and I should be doing it for them because that's what they did for their parents, right? But I don't want that existence. So a big part of like this whole video thing is I talk through things, then I listen. It's actually kind of interesting, like as much talking as I do like through these videos and whatnot, and then I'll watch the video to figure out what all I talked about, what I need to tag, or what I want to call it. It's like a lot of times that is the point where I start making connections, and then it's like, okay, I said it and I got it out of my system that way, but then I heard it, so I'm able to like file it away differently. Because if I'm just speaking things out, I'm gonna forget about it, honestly. But since I go back and listen to it, and it's like, okay, what am I also teaching myself here? Because I like have a lot of this information that I need to navigate through. I just wasn't aware that that was something that I was doing before, right? So yeah, so I listen to it back and then I make the connection. So like I talked about, and I don't even remember why, I keep feeling like that's rotated. I don't even know why I shifted back into that story with my ex in the one particular video that I did. But I was talking about the process for leaving, right? And then I was realizing like the bullshit with my family. It's like, I was thinking, it's like, how do I get out of this situation or prepare myself to be ready to leave this situation? And then I remembered that I've done this before. I already went through everything I needed to do to disengage from the situation with my ex, but that's also the situation or the circumstances I should start working through with the parental situation. So I have to live there for now, and it's fine for what it is. It's relatively safe space for me and my dogs and my birds to to be at. It's just more of an energetic drain than anything. But still, if I'm like making the steps to clear that from my system, it helps immensely. So there again, like the bathtub, I have one of those that I have access to, and I can use lots of salt to, wash everything out of my system and kind of clear it from my energy, so I can go to bed in a good mood and wake up in a good mood, because I don't have their junk energy trying to invade my space, right? And that makes me think about the dream that I had where I don't really remember any of it. It was just I heard the word Nosferatu, and it was talking about my mom, and it was like very much that energetic drain. So like all this stuff that's been going on at an energetic level, like that's where she's an energetic vampire, and she's literally trying to make it so I can't get untangled from that situation, right? So because I'm doing this thing, I'm able to make connections, and that was one of the big connections that I made, was that first off, she and my dad are exactly how I got into the situation with my ex that was extremely toxic, but also, they were or once I figured out how to get out of that situation, it set me up to be able to process through how to get out of the current situation. So there's still a lot of pieces that, I still need to, or that still need to fall into place before I can leave for good. But I know they're coming. It's just kind of funny when, like I was literally writing last night that it would be easier to pack if I knew a time frame for when I was going to get out of there, if I had any kind of idea of where I was going and going to end up. With any luck, it'll be the place that I keep seeing in my head now that I'm able to dream for myself. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there, right? So maybe there's a space to like an intermediary kind of in-between space for where I'm going to end up and where I am now. I don't know. But, since I was writing and listening to that tarot reading, and she says it's not about logic or having, something specific planned. It's a matter of following the sense. You already have the sense of what you need to be doing. Follow that. And it's like, okay, so that's this whole thing is about learning to trust myself, right? So that's basically the means for how I'm doing that, right? So I talk my way through stuff, and then I listen back to it and make some connections, and then that's my process. Or then I will, watch these tarot readings where somebody chimes in something that goes along with what I've been thinking or whatever else. So it's like I'm getting the information. It's just not necessarily in a quick, straightforward way, but it goes back to that point of how, I talk a lot about how I basically spent my whole life collecting data, and it's only been, when I started setting intentions at 40, after, again, okay, so I've talked a lot about those 3 knowings that I had in high school, my senior year in high school. First of which was my friend Tyler was going to die in our mid-30s, and it would be the reason our group would come back together for a short time. The next thing was that I would be 40 before I started to make sense of things, right? And so I got hung up back then because I thought it meant because of his death, that was going to be the thing that helped me finally start. Oh, okay. I was thinking it was somehow his death was my fault. That was not what it was. His death gave me the space to start processing through some things that I wouldn't have had the space or taken the opportunity to process through otherwise, because I didn't know that I could. Right? So I've just been, I had like all this trauma from my childhood, centered around like the bullies and all this situation, and then coming to realize because of this that my dad was one of my biggest bullies, right? And my mom too, but the way that situation played out, it seems like a lot of what my dad was doing was directly related to, like if I wasn't going along with my mom's bullshit, so then he would come at me too, right? So it's still been through talking it through that I was able to make sense of that. But Tyler's death was the first thing that gave me the space to start, basically unpacking some of the shit that I've just been taking on and carrying with me my whole life. Like with the bullying stuff, and then realizing that the stuff that I was getting hit with wasn't even based on truth anyway. Right? So my life, set me up to, with the family shit. There again, so my great-grandfather died when I was 7. And then when I was 8, that was the year, my second grade year was the first year at the new elementary, which is now the old elementary. The first couple of years that I went to elementary school, the elementary school that I was at was a part of the high school. I don't know why. It just was. So when they actually built the first elementary school for the district, I went to that one starting in second grade. And I think it was my second grade year and my brother's fifth grade year. That year, so it was after my great-grandfather died. And then that summer, my grandparents, that I've talked a lot on here about, moved back from Oklahoma. So my grandfather being, of course, the main narcissist element that was trying to burden me with all the family bullshit, so I couldn't do anything better. And, because I was the scapegoat, so I was the one that was putting his illusion at risk, his illusion of having a happy family, because I could see that everybody was just playing a role in this toxic system that I've talked on here a lot about, but that nobody was really happy, right? But things that I was saying when he moved up here, and just like the energetic shift with everything, it's like I felt the agreement between him and my mother with I needed to be stopped, basically, was that I put the illusion at risk. I was going to be the problem for it. I needed to be stopped, which interestingly is now exactly what's happening as I'm here doing these videos and kind of tearing the whole thing apart, because it's not helpful. It's not healthy. It's been very toxic. And I'm just living up to what I came to do, but because they knew that energetically, they knew that I was going to be the one to pull all this stuff into the light. They weren't okay with that, right? So I became the scapegoat so they could try to keep me from doing anything that would embarrass them. Even though I didn't do the things to embarrass them so much as just bring attention to the fact that what was being done wasn't healthy. right? So, everybody enabling my grandfather's bullshit so he could obsess over death like, like it's not a natural part of life, and make everybody obsess over his death so nobody got to live, right? God, how'd I do that? Yeah. Oh, so when I was 8, of course, that's when, the cousin comes along to try to enlighten me, and then ends up with this whole thing where I end up getting bullied for the entirety of my grade school career, and a big hot mess. Again, Tyler's death was the thing that helped me start processing through some of that stuff and realize that what I had been made to feel guilty over hadn't even happened, right? So rather than trying to find out my side of the story, it didn't matter. It was just guilt and shame was poured out on me to keep me in line, so I went along with their bullshit. And Tyler's death gave me the room to unpack some of that, which in turn set me up to hit 40 and start setting intentions for what I did want for my life, right? So, I've talked about how one of the first things I did, I was getting a job at a factory back then, and right after I turned 40, I was working on getting into the position and getting going through the training and all that stuff, and I think it was the second paycheck I decided to get the nose rings and the lip ring. And when I did that, I set the intention that I would never again work in a job that asked me to be anything less than 100% who I am. And it's like, on the one hand, that job didn't care what I did. Like, it didn't care that I had the colorful hair. It didn't care that I have the piercings or whatever. They didn't care about any of that stuff. But still, while I was there, they got the uniforms, that of course you have to wear the uniform. And like part of the idea of that is, since it was putting together, it was a car manufacturing thing, even though I was in the welding department, which was like the very beginning. So we were just taking big pieces of metal and loading them onto the things to be welded together, right? And then they get sent down to the line, or down further in the line. But still, to foster that kind of idea of everyone being the same, and the later parts of the car manufacturing gig, they don't want anything on your person that can potentially scratch the paint, right? So it wouldn't have mattered at where I was at in the welding department, because that's like very first stuff, and of course they're gonna make it all pretty after that comes later. But still, because it's part of this bigger thing, everybody had to look the same, right? Had to wear the same stuff. So, nobody could say that something else wasn't fair, or nobody would want to wear, nobody would want to work in the later parts where they have to have the uniform on if, people in my department didn't have to wear the uniform, foster the idea of unity or whatever the purpose of that was, right? So while they didn't care about the piercings and the hair color and all that stuff, wouldn't have been able to wear the bracelets or anything. Of course, I wasn't wearing those back then really either. or anyway, but yeah. So when I set that intention, that with the nose rings, I keep feeling like that's not exactly sitting where it's supposed to. I don't know. It looks like it's fine, but whatever. Anyway, when I set the intention that I would never again work in a job that asked me to be less than 100% who I am, first thing that comes up is this job is asking you to be something else. So you got to stop. Right? So it was real soon after that. I was walking in listening to, I listened to one song all the way over to from home to work that day, right? And it was Ice Nine Kills Freak Flag. And I just had it on repeat because that's what I do. And I just kept listening to it over and over again. And when I got parked and was getting ready to get out of the car, the song ended again. And I was like, okay, I'm going to switch to something else. So I put my headphones on at that point and, allowed it to switch to something else. And I'm walking to the building. And of course, I'm in all my colors like I do. To go into the locker room so I can change into uniform because I could not stand wearing the uniform on my way to work, right? Like, I guess there was that level of thinking of if I get in a wreck and die on the way to work, I don't want my work uniform to be the last thing I was in. Right? So I would never wear it to work. I would wear it once I got there and all that fun stuff, but on the way in, nope. So I switched the music, right? I let it play something else. And as I'm walking in to the building, and keeping in mind, it's like, of course, shift change. So there's all these people walking in, a lot of them in the uniform, but there's also all these people that are coming out in the uniform. And it's like this montage of blue and white. And I'm all bright and colorful on my way in. And I think the line that got my attention, I think it was from The American Nightmare. It was talking about I'm counting the bodies while you count sheep. And just the way it hit me was like, oh, like this whole, everybody coming out, it's like this system that's already dead and dying and, like all this sameness coming out, and I'm going in all bright and colorful and clearly, stick out like a sore thumb in the montage of blue and white. But it just like hit me really hard that day, and I was laughing my ass off when I had that revelation as I was going in. It was just the line in the song just timed exactly right as I was going in, as this like montage of blue and white was coming out. It's like, okay, I see what you did there. Like this whole thing just being guided on this crazy path. But then, so shortly after that, like everything just kept building, and it all goes back to this intention that I set for my nose rings and my lip ring, that I would never again work in a job that asked me to be less than 100% who I am. And then realizing that I was in a job where I could do whatever I wanted, but I still had limits on, you can't have dangly earrings when you're loading parts because there's other stuff you could get snagged on, and you don't want to like freaking rip your earlobe or rip your ear off or whatever. So obviously there's limits on what you can do, and all that fun stuff, which goes back to basically telling you that to do this thing you have to tone yourself down, right? So yeah. But then after I set that intention, there, of course, there's the, it wasn't immediate. It was kind of an overtime thing, but it was like this slow build of these different intentions that I was setting, and then I talked about watching the movie with my mom. We're watching Love Again, and until that point, like everything in me was just like, yeah, I'm just relationships, no thanks. Like the last time I had been on the dating apps, I've talked several times about how it was like the universe just like kept presenting me with all these really bad options, and it's like, yeah, this isn't where I want to find somebody that I'm supposed to be with either. It's like, I got to a point with the movie. I was like, okay, so maybe I'm ready to start thinking in this direction again. But clearly, I made some really bad decisions for myself over the years. So maybe it was something, okay, so it's like, maybe I'm ready to start thinking about, relationships again. But obviously my way didn't work. So maybe we'll just let the universe handle that one. So universe, have it, right? Take the lead. And while I'm at it, might as well throw in career, because that's not worked out for me well either, right? So I kept working in mental health, but then I would check out after a while because it was just so exhausting, like mentally, emotionally, psychologically, just all the things, all these energetic things. It was really exhausting. So it's like I would do that and it would be okay for a while, and then at some point I would just get so exhausted that I would need to walk away from it for a while. And there again, realizing all this time later that it's because I absorb the density from the environment, and then I have to clear it from my own system. Like that's my version of alchemizing things, right? That's what I'm here to do. My version of transmutation. I absorb the density from the environment, and then it's on me to figure out how to turn it into something else and release it, right? So sometimes, baths help. Lots of salt. Dancing can help. All sorts of things. But still, it's like skating's a big one. That's why I got into skating as much as I did there for a while too. And I think part of that was, it was at the start. It was before I even realized that I needed to set boundaries because of the stuff with my family. So before I knew to set boundaries, I got into this point where I started, okay, roller derby. I was doing roller derby back then. And I decided at one point I wanted to skate outside by myself. And then I started doing that more and more. And then I realized I was enjoying being outside in nature and skating by myself more than I was skating in a environment where I'm competing with people in any kind of way. It's like, yeah, I'd just rather skate by myself. So I started just doing that. And then it became kind of an obsession for a while. And it's like a big part of what it was clearing the density from my system that I had been picking up from my family situation, right? And then, of course, this didn't come about until November of that year. So I turned 40 in 2023. And, there's first the job situation, the intention setting with the lip ring and the nose rings. And then, maybe thinking I might be ready to consider being, might be ready to be ready, as Abraham Hicks was always saying. I was listening to a lot of Abraham Hicks stuff back then. And they always said, if you are ready to be ready, then the universe will line you up with the things to get you ready for what you're ready to, or what you want to invite in, right? And that's exactly what's been going on. So it's like I was ready to be thinking about, maybe I was open to like the relationship scenario. But even that, it's still It's like I've been collecting all of this density from the environments that I've been in for my entire life and not able to release stuff until I started, just getting on the path to realizing that there were things that I needed to do to lead me on this journey, right? So turning the love and career lives over to the universe to lead was essential on that. And then, of course, it came up with this whole twin flame thing. And that was a really, that was a weird one, like starting out, because, okay, I encountered the guy's energy back in like 2020 is when I first heard of the music that would lead me to figuring out who he was, right? But I heard the music in 2020, got really into the groups then, but it was like 2021 before I encountered his energy on social media, and then had like these weird dreams that started where he started showing up in, and I've talked about those a lot, and then like one of the big things that started happening early on after I encountered his energy, after he spoke or he directly responded to something I said on the live stream that I happened to find my way into. And, I've talked about how I felt like I'd been spotted, right? So that was very much, I'd been spotted, so here's this thing. And then I start having all these dreams where he's there and it's kind of a weird thing, and I joked to a kind of pseudo friend at the time that maybe I should manifest one of those, and she gave me reasons for why that was not a good idea. And it's like, yeah, you're probably right. But it didn't stop me from, like the big thing, I worked at a different factory back in 2019 to 2020. And there again, I left that factory job after I started getting into like meditation and a bunch of other stuff. And it's like, I know writing is a big part of what I'm supposed to be doing. So I was like, I think I'm ready to focus on that. So I went to try that route for a while. And luckily, the respite care with Gracie, luckily that's been in early on since I moved back. That's been a thing that I've been able to do as kind of a little part-time side gig. And back then, we were taking her to school every day. And then, it was me, my mom, and my aunt. So I was still spending a lot of time with them. And of course, mind you, that's where a lot of this dense, heavy energy comes from, is my mom and not wanting me to be able to do anything better for my life, right? So I've unpacked a lot of mom drama on this space. And once the twin flame thing, before I was aware of who he is, my aunt and I would go into the gas station to get the beverages, and I started having these, it was like my brain got hijacked, and suddenly I would be like daydreaming about bumping into this guy in random places, but it was always the gas station. It's like, okay, but why does it always have to be the gas station? Well, that forced me to realize that was literally the only thing I was doing aside from going to work was going to work or taking Gracie to school. Otherwise, the only time I had available to possibly meet somebody was going into the gas station, because that was the only thing I did that was different for my regular routine otherwise. It's like, oh, so I need to start doing other things, but then it wasn't, like that stuff happened 2021, I think, was that live stream that kind of made things start shifting and being weird on that end. And I started seeing these visions. And then after I, have this little moment of turning my love and career lives over to the universe to lead, one of the first things that happened, it directed me to who he was. And of course, my first response on that was, yeah, right, he's out of my league, right? And then the response back was, are you going to let us do it, or would you like to try it your way again? Because that's worked so well. It's like, well, what do I have to lose by just, letting this lofty thing be a possibility? Okay, fine, I'll bite, right? So it's like the carrot on the string trying to keep me moving, which is an interesting metaphor to use considering I don't like carrots, but you get the idea. That's like the thing that's kept me moving on a lot of this whole journey. But then, so I go to the zoo. Okay, before the zoo, there was a roller derby thing, right? So this was before I decided to, I had started skating by myself, but it was before I really was realizing that I enjoyed skating by myself more than I did skating with the derby. But there was a Halloween bout, and it was early in October. And I remember thinking, okay, if this, then I'll sign up for that. Then it's like, what's the point of that? If these certain things fall into line, then it will show that I'm supposed to sign up for this thing. But the fact that I had this thought where I would potentially sign up for it at all, it's like that right there is showing me that I've been thinking about it. There's a part of me that kind of wants to do it. Why isn't that enough? So I made that be enough. It's like, well, fuck it. Since I thought about it, I'm going to go ahead and sign up for it. So I did. And then, of course, that all worked out. I think the Halloween bout that year was on the 7th, because it was the 12th when I went to the zoo. And I know that because of the pictures that I took that day. Okay. So, roller derby, did the Halloween bout. I think it was the next day was one of the new skater workshops. And I decided to go to that. What had been happening was, as I was skating outside, I'd wander off into like daydreams, and I realized that the third of the visions that I'd been having ever since I was in my senior year of high school, I always saw myself with the group of 5 guys that I knew were going to be very important to me, and we were somehow here to change the world together. Right? So I suddenly realized it's like that, the group of guys that I'd been seeing since my senior year in high school was connected to this other guy that came up only after I committed a love and career to the universe to lead, right? So, once that happens, I start having like all these sorts of visions about like different ways of encountering them and meeting them along the way and all this stuff. And like it's like big chunks of information. It's like as I was able to clear some of the ickiness from my system, as I was skating obsessively, and I would skate anywhere from like, I don't like just skating for a mile. So if I'm going to skate and, I got to take the time to put everything on, I'm going to go for at least 3, but preferably 4. So 4 is kind of my bare minimum now, but back then I would do 3. But yeah, like on the low end, 3. But I also started going to 7 was a common one, and then it was like one day I was like, well, I'm not ready to be done here, so I pushed it to 11, and then it's like, well, from 11 then I pushed it to 14. It's like, all right, so I can do this. And I had a lot of days that I would go skate for like 2 hours or whatever and end up with or 2.5 hours, I think was what it took about to get 14. But yeah, like as that became more normal and like all this stuff was just, it's like I was able to clear like big chunks of the density because I was skating it out of my system, and then I was lost in my thoughts to like all these daydreams and whatnot. I started making sense of other things. It's like, all right, well, we're gonna roll with it. We're gonna follow it, see where it goes, right? So we did, and yeah. So as I was doing that, like, it got to a point where it's like it felt like they were there with me, like we were having this like conversation at this energetic level, but we were still very much having a conversation, and it got really weird when I went to the new skater workshop, and it's like I was skating with all of these people that had no idea what was going on this other level. And then I had this other level where like I was still actively talking to all of these people and kind of joking around and everything. It's like, I don't like this space of knowing that this like energetic thing is happening, but also it makes you feel kind of crazy when when you're there with a bunch of people that have no idea that the other thing is going on. So it's like, yeah, I think I prefer skating by myself, right? And I don't know. So once I started skating more by myself because I liked connecting with these other people, but then also it was just difficult being in a space with other people that I could actually see and talk to and know that they had no idea about this other level that was where things were going on, which is also why I ended up retiring roller derby when I did. Yeah. So Halloween bout, new skater workshops when I was kind of like, oh, this is kind of, I like skating with these people, but I prefer skating by myself, and connecting with the other people that I don't actually have in my life. So yeah. But then October 12th, my mom, my aunt, and I took Gracie to the zoo, right? And while we're at the zoo, it was kind of the same thing. And it was like there was this other reality where, this twin flame person was in my space and like right there with me all day. And like we're having these like conversations and whatnot. And I was having a good day at that level. I was having a good day at the other level too. But it was just like, again, that really awkward space of, it's like one reality's superimposed over the top of the other one. It's like, it's just a weird space to be in. And I'm just, okay. So I watched this Chloe Taylor reading the other day, and she had this card that, I've pulled it several times. I don't use the deck as much. It's what? Wisdom of the Oracle? I'm not going to commit to that. Colette Baron read for sure. But like the card she pulled was Between Worlds. And she gave it like this different she had like a slightly different read on it from what I was thinking, but what I've always thought of was exactly the space that I'm talking about now. So like, it's a picture of a flamingo, and like the back half of it is like all black and white, and then the front half of it's like, it's got like a aqua background, and then of course the pink flamingo, so it's got this bright, vibrant contrast, and it's like that was the feeling that I got from it was, the now I'm thinking Pleasantville because, the old existence is very much this black and white, and you don't see all the color and like what's actually there and what's actually going on. And then this other space where, it's like I'm dreaming up this other reality, but I'm in communication with these other people at this other level. And it's just being in between the worlds, right? So existing in two different spaces and trying to make sense of them. It's just a weird kind of, yeah. Anyway, that day, I did as I normally do at the zoo, which is take a bunch of pictures, right? And of course, we were there for Zubu because that was the thing for October. And so Gracie had like this corgi costume that she had. And at one point it got hot and she didn't want to wear it. So, I'm also, at one point, I think I had it hooked onto my backpack or something, and it basically was following me around like a tail. So my aunt got a picture of that silliness, but, like otherwise, like the pictures I took that day, like they kept being amazing. It's like I took this, a couple really good pictures of the bears. We had this little instance where we were over by the tigers, and of course Zubu is like crazy busy, but like this female tigress looked at me, and I was like, I got a picture of her looking at me. And it was this amazing picture. And like after I took the picture, it's like she came up to the glass and was like pacing in front of it. It's like, I feel like she has a message for me. It's like she's trying to communicate something to me. But there were all these people in the way, so I couldn't get any closer. But it was just I just kept having all these moments where it was just like being in the right place at the right time. And, the pictures ended up being really good. And it was kind of discouraging when I posted all these pictures and like nobody, even saw how good some of them were. And it was literally like being in the right place at the right time. It's like, because like the bears were doing their thing. I just happened to be at the right place at the right time to catch the bears in like their certain positions, right? And of course, that would be the thing. Like those were the pictures that I submitted to that contest the next year all came from that day where everything was just coming together perfectly. It's like I was just in the right place at the right time, and like the elephant picture that I've talked a lot about, I thought when I first took the picture, it's like, that's going to be shitty. But then I went back and looked at it. It's like, that looks like a fucking poster, but it's like got this like haze from the sun, and it's like everything was kind of, when I took the picture, it's like, that's not going to turn out at all. But then I looked at the picture and was like, oh my God, it looks like a fucking poster. Right. So, it's just like a bunch of those things. And also in the space where I feel like I'm with this person who's not physically there and yet somehow is right there with me, and then there was a whole lot of stuff that year. Because of course this is the end of 2023. I have committed my love and career lives over to the universe to take the lead on, right? So then like all this other stuff just starts happening. It's like, what is going on here? Everything is weird. So take the pictures, and then it ends up getting to a point where I kind of felt the YouTube thing was coming for a while before it actually was something I was brave enough to do. Excuse me. And I even, I've talked about on Instagram, like one of my earliest posts after I started doing that more regularly. There for a long time, I have to relearn how to do everything on Instagram anytime I want to do anything. So that's kind of been a pain in the ass in and of itself. But, I think it was October. It's like I had this picture a couple pictures that I took outside under this tree, and it's like it had a blue orb like around my neck, and there were two pictures that had the blue orb in them. It's like, obviously anybody that knows like science shit that has, or whatever, light refraction, blah blah blah, whatever that stuff is, it's like it makes sense that it was some natural phenomenon because of where the sun was and all this stuff. But it's like, that means something, right? I don't know exactly what it means, but it means something. But I don't remember if it was before or after that I pulled the cards that were specifically, one was, it was the Archangel Gabriel card from my Energy Oracle deck, which is like the one I use for the energy for the week. ahead mostly. I'll post who that one's by because I'm not remembering straight off. But it was, of course, the 5th chakra, which is the throat chakra. And, it's talking about Archangel Gabriel has this blue orb, and it's like, what's going on here? It's like just all this weird overlap. And it was talking about an upcoming communication project of some sort. So, all right, well, we're just going to roll, right? So what else can we do on that end? But I had this post where I, showed the cards that I had pulled and, posted what the guidebook said for them and how it was relevant. And I talked about feeling like there was this YouTube thing ahead of me. And then, of course, November, I finally get to the point where I start doing the YouTube thing. And that was a whole traumatically scary thing in and of itself. I was, again, skating. The big thing that hit me was he had to be in some kind of spotlight because how would I find him? But then how was he going to find me if I didn't also start doing more than I'd ever done to put myself out there in some kind of way, right? So then I got to a point where it's like, okay, so I have to do this thing, right? So I'm skating one day, and I get this really strong sense of like, go sit on a rock and do a video. And so I did. And I didn't know what I was going to do, what I was supposed to talk about or anything, so I just talked. And then that ended up being the start of it, and that was November 11th, 2023. So I got my 1111 and my 123 in there. And, by the way, it is 111 at the top, and I did see it when I was at 11111. So, yes. Yeah, and the thing I read on the, what was it? Twin Flames 1111, I think was the one that had the post with the numbers, and it said 111 or 1111 signifies some kind of shift in the twin flame connection, possibly the start of a new phase. So I just keep seeing them everywhere. I was leaving after I donated platelets the other day. On the way back, I passed one sign that had 111 on it, and then there was another sign in the grass immediately next to it that had 1111. It's like, okay. It's like, and then I think I saw it again somewhere on the way home, the 1111. I think it was like the last 4 digits of a phone number. And I think it was the same sign, but at a different location. So, yeah, but that was kind of a weird thing. But again, going along with the synchronicities, and you're on the right path and keep going. Yeah. So I don't know. I just feel like everything right now is just kind of, it's like this big culmination of different things that's going on. And, of course, I started this video talking about how I felt like I wanted to mess up the Velcro on this thing. Wanted to pack up a box, yesterday, since it was a summer solstice and supposed to be some kind of good opportunity to clear some clutter and, kind of demonstrate as a live demonstration to the universe that you're ready to make space for the new to come in. And then thinking on that even with, the idea of making space for the new to come in, but then also thinking about journaling that bit about how it'd be easier to pack if I had some kind of plan. And then at the same time, I'm writing this, I hear in the tarot reading that I was half watching that, it's not about having a plan or having It's not about following the logic or having a strategic plan or whatever. It's about following the sense. So even that, I feel like just as I've talked myself back to this point, it just feels like everything is this culmination for this other thing, right? For this bigger thing, the making room, the live demonstration for the universe that I am making space for the good to come in, right? So, yeah. Okay, so what else in there? It just, the biggest thing is like that piece of letting the universe take the lead, right? So that was the big point of what I was doing in 2023 was, okay, so I feel like I'm supposed to do this and I don't know why and I don't know what it's supposed to look like. And, you know, I've talked many times about the first 3 subscribers I had on this channel. I cried because I was afraid I was going to fail. It's like, what if I can't do this? But then also knowing that I had to start putting myself out there in any kind of way for anything else to come from it, right? And, you know, the day at the zoo, right? So I took these pictures that ended up turning out amazingly. And then the next year, find out about a contest that the zoo was having where they wanted people to submit pictures of their animals that they had taken, right? So I, you know, submitted the tigress, the elephants, and one of my bear pics. And the bear was the one that won. And I love that picture of the bear, but I didn't think it would. That wasn't the one I was leaning toward when I loved the tigress picture better, honestly. But you know, the bear was the one that won, right? And then that too set me up to realize, you know, of course, because when the contest came along, I was disappointed. Dog just shows up to belch at me. I was disappointed because people hadn't appreciated the pictures more because I thought they were really cool that day. You know, like nobody looked at the albums at all that I had posted on Facebook. So it's like, all right, well, maybe somebody else will get some enjoyment out of them. But again, I would not have put the pictures into the contest if I knew there was any kind of prize package. And, you know, I've talked on here about that too. It's like, what I knew was the prize was the opportunity to have my picture be the centerfold for the magazine, the spring summer magazine for this year. And even that, it was, but the picture got flipped around. So my picture that was supposed to be the centerfold was on the back of what ended up being on the centerfold, but the centerfold was like a picture of a snake on one side and like a red panda or something on the other side. So it was still like you had to pull it out to actually see it as the centerfold. So it was kind of a little glitch on that end. But even that, I feel like supports the idea of why like there's been all these different things that, you know, I just accepted that I wasn't meant to do, or, you know, wasn't going to work out for me and for whatever reason, or I wasn't meant to do good things or whatever, you know, I wasn't meant to have good things happen, right? So it's like, even the fact that my picture got switched, so it was supposed to be the centerfold, but then it ended up being like on the other side of it, you know, front or the top and the bottom. The one picture's got the bear's feet and the other picture's got the head. But like those kinds of things, it's like throughout my life, that's the kind of weird stuff that happens on my journey, right? So for that, you know, if I had known there was any kind of prize package, I wouldn't have put in for this contest, right? And I didn't know what that was all about, but that was, again, if you're ready to be ready, then the universe lines you up with the lessons you need, right? So because I'd set that intention and then this thing comes up, so I have the opportunity to submit this picture. And then, that forced me to realize that if there was any kind of prize package, I would not have even bothered, because I didn't deem myself worthy enough to have something possibly win, right? So I wouldn't have even bothered. Since it was just for the opportunity for my picture to be the centerfold, it's like, maybe somebody else will get as much enjoyment out of my pictures as I did, since nobody else mentioned them aside from that, right? And then this thing comes up with the zoo, and then I submit them because there's no prize package that I'm aware of other than the centerfold thing, and maybe somebody else can enjoy my picture, right? So I put in my pictures. And then in January, I found out my picture won. And it caught me off guard, I think was the biggest thing. It's like, oh, wow, well, that's kind of cool, right? So I told my aunt first, because of course it was a morning beverage run, that I had found out like right before we got out of the car. Of course, my mom always stayed in the car. She was usually talking to my brother on the Bluetooth in the car. So my aunt and I would go make the run and then come back, right? I found out right before I got out of the car, because I think they were talking about something. My aunt was otherwise engaged in the conversation as well. So I took the time, since we weren't getting out of the car yet, to look at my email and found that I had won the contest, right? So my aunt was the first person that I told, and she was excited for me. And then, when I get back to the car and it comes out to my mom, that was the day where within a half hour of finding it felt like she was somehow disappointed that I had done something. And I think the biggest piece was she didn't have a way to hijack it, right? So I end up saying that I won this thing, and within a half an hour of finding out that I had won, as I was trying to print off the paperwork to send to the zoo to give them permission to use my picture, she and my dad hijacked the moment, and then I spent the rest of the day in tears, right? So then it was like, that showed me that was why I never risked trying to do anything with my life, because my parents would find a way to ruin it, right? And so I had this lifelong tendency to self-destruct. I always tried to self-sabotage to prevent them from hijacking anything that I put my heart into, basically. And even that lesson didn't come immediately. It took some time to get back to that point. But eventually I figured it out. But if you're ready to be ready to be ready, you get lined up with the lessons to lead you to what you need to know, right? And I did end up getting a prize. And all it was these 4 passes for either to do one of their rides for free or feed the animals, right? So I got 4 of these passes. And that, if I would have known about it in September or October, whenever the contest came up, that would have been enough to keep me from taking a shot, right? So if there had been a prize beforehand, and that was something that I had to realize later, it's like, that was because I didn't deem myself to be worthy of winning anything, which again goes back to, the situation with my parents, right? And the things that I've been learning from being there and all this time after my divorce, and realizing they're exactly why I got into that situation to begin with, and then, that worthiness wound and, just believing that I wasn't worthy of good things, that stems from them too, right? So all the ways they've tried to actively seek and destroy anything I could possibly do decently in life, and make it so I wouldn't try to do things, right? Yeah. And I've talked about like that cardinal. There was the cardinal that built her nest in the rose bush right in front of the window, the picture window at our house. First day, I open the curtains and I see this nest. It's like, ooh, that's not a good place for a nest. And it had an egg in it. I think it did have the egg at that point. It was a little brown and white speckled egg. And I thought it was like a sparrow. But then the next day when I went to open the curtains, it ended up being a cardinal, right? So I see this mama cardinal fly out into this tree, and she's just like staring at the window. It's like, ooh. Well, now that I know it's a cardinal, now I want to like go out of my way to take extra care to make sure we don't like scare the shit out of her. And then of course, I mention it to my parents that, she put her egg or her nest there, and that's not an ideal spot for this nest or anything, and then there's like this series of, just saying that there was finding out that nest belonged to a cardinal, and it was a cardinal egg. And I was planning how I could adjust so we could still get light in from that way, because that's like one of the main sources of light in that room. But also not terrify her with the dogs, because, Taz sees the Amazon guy come up or whatever, and he's going nuts the whole time. Sees the car, waits for the dude to come out and get all the way up there, and with any luck, it's one package, but if it's not, then however many trips it's going to take for them to get up there, and it's like just this whole series of things, but then the next day when I go to get ready to open the curtains, I go in there and find my dad's already opened it and is sitting in front of it. It's like, yeah. Since I said that this was what was happening out there, and it had always been, or it's always fallen on me to be the one to open the window and let the light in, right? That's usually my job. I'm the one that likes the light in the house, right? So I like the natural light. So I open the curtains, but then that one day, because when I had said that there was the cardinal, or it was a cardinal nest, then suddenly he was interested in it. And then suddenly he's sitting in front of it, right? And kind of like, even then, just being an obstacle because, oh, there's this thing you enjoy? Let me get in the way of that. That day, the next time I looked at the nest, she kicked the egg out, and it was like busted on the foundation, or like the little concrete bit of the foundation you could see at the bottom of the side of the house. She busted it on that. And it really just hit me, because even then, the reason that, she, in a short span of time, she realized that wasn't a safe space, right? So, rather than trying to make it work anyway, she destroyed the egg and try again later, right? But then it made me realize that is also that thing that I've been doing. It's like that little self-sabotage thing. It's like, because if I try to put my heart into anything that I know my parents are going to find a way to shit all over it if they can, to ruin it for me and to make sure I don't get out of line and try to do something more than what this family is capable of or deems I should be capable of, right? So it's like just that little lesson with the cardinal. It's like, that's why I was always in self-sabotage modes, because I couldn't like truly put my heart into creating anything because they would ruin it, right? And again, it's been a whole lot of things that have taken me to that lesson, but now that I know it and I have received the lesson and gotten the clarity on why my life has gone the way it has in so many levels, I'm done. I'm done with these people, right? As soon as I find my way out, I'm not coming back. I'm done with them, because that's literally my entire life was hijacked to tend to their bullshit and not be able to do anything worthwhile for myself or on my own, right? So I'm not okay with that anymore, and I'm really tired of cleaning up after them. So I'm done with that. And like even that stupid conversation with my dad the other day, where on the 19th, I think his therapist had just left, and I was making a breakfast bowl and getting my stuff ready. Because literally all I ever do, if he's in that room, it's like I don't eat in that room. It's like I get my stuff and leave the room. Unless it's like something that my mom actually cooked and we're all eating there, maybe, but then I'm going to have headphones on so I can tune them out. But otherwise, I take most opportunities to go in the other room. So I'm making the breakfast bowl this day, and my dad gets this kind of snide, sarcastic kind of air about him and says, "It's Juneteenth, are you so happy?" And I was just like, I'd be a lot happier if my dad wasn't a bigot. He's like, what makes me a bigot? It's like, I've heard you say all sorts of racist shit about people. And it's like, I even called him out specifically about things that he said, and he was like, well, then just don't be around me. It's like, as much as possible, I don't. Right? When there's the opportunity to leave the room, I'm leaving the room. So, yeah. It's like, I don't even like, I've talked about not liking to sit where he sits, and he knows that that's something that I avoid too, because, I've talked about how, like, the damn chair in the family room. Okay. The chair he normally sits on, it was like the right side of the couch. For a while, that was where I would sit if my mom and I were watching anything on TV or a movie or whatever. Once he retired, that became the space he would land. Well, I don't like sitting where he sits because he is not above peeing on himself, right? And health reasons, yes, there's that there, but he's not going to clean up after himself because he thinks somebody else should have to do it for him, right? So since he's gross, I stopped sitting in that spot altogether. So I started sitting on this other couch. Well, then he realized that I was sitting over there. So eventually, I noticed that he was sitting where I was sitting on the other couch. Like he made it a habit where he would go there. And of course, if you weren't paying attention, you would just say, well, maybe it's because he's sitting and he wanted to sit closer to the fireplace. But it's like, that's not it. It's like, yes, he will do that also, but it's like he would just have like random times he'd just start sitting there and, maybe claiming it was closer to the TV or whatever, but it's like, no, it's just, I stopped sitting in the other spot, so he moved to the other location, right? And of course, especially after my mom started making him sit on a towel on the other couch because he pees on himself. But then this one day, he has a towel on the other couch and he's sitting in that spot. Well, I had gotten some movies from the library and my mom was like, ooh, I might want to watch that. So we ended up watching a movie in there. He started in that spot and I wouldn't go to the other spot. So we had this leather chair that is my brother, it used to be his chair. Used to be a couch with it too. The couch has died. Couch died. See, they were getting rid of it. So again, because we're not supposed to get rid of anything, it went over to my parents' house. Well, then they had the opportunity. My brother decided he might want it back, right? So they took it back for a little bit. But then they were going to get rid of it again. And I was like, well, bring it back over. So we ended up with just the one, it's like an oversized armchair. And I don't know if they took that with them or not. I know the couch went with them. The couch ended up dying at the old house, and it was falling apart and just got pitched. But the other chair is still there. So, or there again, I don't remember. Since my dad was sitting where I would normally sit after having lost my one seat, I cleared all the blankets and everything off of the leather chair and sat there. And I mentioned to my brother and to a friend, it's like, all right, so I guarantee if I forget to put this stuff back on this couch, or on this chair, he's going to start sitting here, because that was kind of the catch-all for like all the blankets and everything. And he would never move them to sit there. So when he was sitting where I would have otherwise, I cleared that space off to sit on, right? And then I did forget, set myself up to forget to put the blankets back on it. And the next time I went in there, he was in my spot again. It's like, see? I knew it. It's like I knew there was a reason. It's like it's not stuff that's new. It's just I've figured out that's where some of my like hesitation on things would come in at, right? So, once I made that connection, and of course, that night I was sitting in that chair, and as soon as my dad decided he didn't want to watch the movie anymore, I looked at my mom and I was like, all right. I said, there's a towel on this couch. And she said, yeah, because I don't want him to sit there if he's going to pee all over everything. I don't want him to pee on the couch. I said, yeah, I get it. I said, but he wasn't sitting there. I said, he was sitting on this other couch. I said, on your blanket, because she had a blanket over there, this pink blanket that's really soft that she loves, that her best friend gave her. And she's like, God damn it. It's like, yeah. It's like, you're catching on. Now you're seeing what I'm seeing, right? So, yeah, so she noticed that, and I said, I guarantee if I forget to put these blankets back on here, he's going to be sitting here. And it was like the next day I went in there, and sure enough, he's sitting in my spot. It's like, there it is. It's like, that is a bigger piece of why I don't want to sit in the same space that they're at, because he follows me around, taking over my space to let me know it's his space, right? So, yeah. And like, it was really frustrating with the shit on the dog crates. My dog crates, yes. But my skate gear, right? My hot, sweaty skate gear that I set on the dog crate to dry. And then the next time I go in there, it's got a fucking coat on it, or a fucking blanket. And it's like, he's literally just following me around, trying to force me to have to clean up after him, and I'm not doing that. So, now that I'm I am realizing where all this shit is coming from, and like this whole idea of like entanglements. My storage unit is how I become disentangled from that, right? So it's taking my stuff out of the shared space and putting it elsewhere. So, of course, like the garage, I have this black rack that I'm going to get out of there next. That was on the agenda for today, but then he drove the truck away. So, and I'm pretty confident he has not been cleared for that, especially since my mom's not been cleared for her stuff, but she's driving anyway, so whatever. Not on me. So, yeah, when I get back home, I got to figure out what to do with the 2 containers of their clothes that are on the rack, and the fucking Christmas tree that is huge. I could move that to the shed, then it's never going to come out of the shed. So I can say that honestly, because I fully intend to not be there at Christmas this year. I fully intend to be out of that space somewhere else and not have any reason to go back. Because like I said, when I'm done, I'm done. I realize that they are literally the reason I have not been able to do more with my life. And it's like, yeah, just like anything I would want to do, they would try to figure out how to squash it. So that is all I need to know that I'm ready to be done. You know, like the situation with my ex when I finally left there. It's like I knew he wanted it to go to court, so he didn't care about what I got out of him. That wasn't the point. He just wanted to force me to have to spend a whole bunch of money to get down there, you know, because of course we were in Alabama there at the end, so it had to be resolved in Alabama. So that would be on me to go down there for court, and he would try to drag it out as much as possible just to waste time and money and to make me look crazy. And I wanted no part of that. So like, I will knowingly allow myself to be screwed over in this situation to get my sanity back, right? So that was all he was interested in. If he could keep me having to go down there, and you know, the frustration of having to go down there in and of itself, but then just trying to prove to the court that I was crazy, that's all it would have been. And I wasn't interested, so I went over his head and connected with his mommy, and I gave her this big long spiel about all the reasons I was leaving and would never go back. And I said, I know he just wants me to have to go down there, and so he can set me up to be crazy. I said, if you can talk him into signing the divorce paperwork within 4 business days, I said, I will take what I left with, and that's it. Like, I don't want anything else. I got my dogs, you know, that was the biggest thing. It's like, I will walk away from this and, you know, take whatever I got and let that be it. I said, if we have to fight in court, I said, you know, I can, you know, because I was the one that put together the extensive stuff for the custody case that her son ended up winning, not because he was a good dad, but because he was the lesser of the two evils, and because I knew that at least he was so worried about making himself look better than his son's mother that if the judge said he must be in therapy and stay with a single therapist, he was going to be more concerned with making himself look good and would stick with that therapist rather than trying to jerk him out and put him in other places, right? And so what I did do, that he yelled at me for later, but I don't regret at all because I think it was very necessary. The last time I took his son to his therapy, of course, my ex did not go that day because he had to work late. And of course, you know, in the time that at the start of the appointments, the therapist wanted to check in with, you know, parental figures to see what was going on, you know, kind of the focus of things. So what I did, I took the court-ordered psych eval that my ex had done, and I took that in there with me, and I told that therapist that I was leaving and why I was leaving, and I said that I hated that I had to push for the kid to go into his dad's custody, but at the same time, you know, his mom was the one that was jerking him out from like different schools and therapists and doctors and all this stuff to take him to next locations every time somebody started catching on to her bullshit, right? So at least the dad was more concerned about his own image, that he would try to stick with one as long as possible. So it's like, okay, so I'm leaving, and this is why I am leaving. I said, and this is the psych eval, the court-ordered psych eval that he had to do that says needs further testing to rule out narcissistic personality disorder. You know, I gave that therapist all that stuff. I said, the best I can do for this kid is, you know, it's like he's not my kid, right? At the end of the day, I have to be more concerned about my sanity and getting me out of there and into a better situation. It's like, because just being there for that kid to see me get treated like shit because his dad was a freaking narcissistic asshole, that's not helpful either. So it's like, I did what I set out to do. And really, it was the bigger part of it was clearing his brother's name and showing his kid that just because he has two shitty parents doesn't mean he is forever doomed to be just like his shitty parents, right? So he can make choices to decide to be better, right? And to decide to not just go along with whatever their bullshit they put out on him, right? So it's like those things I did, right? So, and again, like my former brother-in-law and, the kid, like those were the two biggest things. It's like, kid can't help who his dad is or his mom for that matter. And, it's my former brother-in-law, it's like he can't help who his brother is, but he's still getting or having to suffer the consequences from his brother's bad decisions. So what I can do is build a rock solid case to like completely tear her story apart and get him cleared of that, and set the kid up with the possibility of realizing he doesn't have to turn out like his parents just because they're willing to be assholes, right? So I did as far as I could do, right? So when I left, like I said, there's that day where he tried to force himself on me, saying that I just needed to get laid and then I wouldn't go anywhere. And, when he tried to force himself on me, I shoved him and he fell back into the wall, and all three dogs like came to my aid and were like right there with me. So it's like, that intuitive voice right at that moment was, they're doing their job of protecting you. It is now your job to protect them. It is time to go. So we went, right? And I definitely did not expect this to be an hour and 46 minutes, or 47 here soon. So yeah. Anyway, yeah, I think that's about all I want to talk about for today anyway, which is a lot longer than I thought I thought this was going to be more like the one I did the other day, where it was like 45 minutes or less. And as I approached that point, I thought I didn't have more to say, but apparently I had more to say. So here we are. I'm going to go ahead and call it since I've made it this far. So as always, I appreciate you. Until the next time, see ya.